Hey everyone, what's going on? Today in the news, it was a very interesting day. If you've been following this channel, we've been following this date for a few months now due to the eclipse and also the blood flower moon that happened on today. It was the closest supermoon of the year and so on, right? This day is very important to the moon. And would you believe that the headline story, one of the main headline stories today, was that Amazon is buying MGM? And pretty much all of the major news outlets, they made sure to focus on James Bond with this MGM thing, right? CNN and other ones. And CNN even writes in their article, so why would Amazon want MGM? 3 words, Bond, James Bond. So you know they put all of this emphasis on James Bond. And what's so interesting about this is if you go, you can read on my blog as well. I have a lot more blog posts than videos. I haven't had time to make very many videos lately, but I have talked about James Bond numerous times and how James Bond is synced up to the moon landing. And, clear back before Sean Connery even died, Sean Connery, famous for portraying James Bond, 210 days actually before Sean Connery died, I talked about how we should watch out for Sean Connery this year because we had the death of the Bond girl Pussy Galore from the movie Goldfinger. And I re-looked up Sean Connery, and I knew this year was the 51st anniversary of the moon landing. And in this language of gematria, you can check out some links in the description if you're new, but it's the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases. In this language, the word moon just so happens to equal 51 and also 21. Now we're in the year 21, and we're still in the 51st anniversary of the moon landing. And Sean Connery, if you look up Sean Connery, I know I talked about this in the other videos, but Sean Connery's birthday just so happens to be August 25th, which is the same day that Neil Armstrong, the first guy to walk on the moon, had died. And if you look up that day in history, there's also a thing called the Great Moon Hoax of 1835. And this moon hoax happened on this same day, and it's about a civilization of bat people that live on the moon. And since 2012, I've been talking about the connection, about the connection to Batman and how it's connected to James Bond, because in 2012 we had the Batman theater shooting, if you recall, and at that Batman theater shooting there was a preview for the James Bond movie called Skyfall, and in that preview they showed the Aurora Plaza in China, so it said the word Aurora right on the building, and then at that midnight showing, Aurora, Colorado supposedly got shot up by James Egan Holmes, and much, much more, right? So James Bond is synced up to this Batman shooting. So what are the odds that on Sean Connery's birthday, there's also something called the Great Moon Hoax that's about a civilization of bat people who live on the moon. And then Neil Armstrong, the first guy to walk on the moon, also died on August 25th. Neil Armstrong also died in 2012, which was the same year as the Batman shooting. And he died 1 month and 5 days after the anniversary of the moon landing, or the Batman shooting. And the word moon. Moon also equals 15, right? And like I said, this is the 51st anniversary of the moon landing. This upcoming year is going to be interesting because James Bond equals 52. And it'll be the 52nd anniversary of the moon landing. I'll talk about that later in the video, but I want to keep on with this pattern that's going on. I should also point out, I don't think I pointed out that the Batman shooting happened on the anniversary of the moon landing. Hopefully I made that clear, but the Batman shooting happened on the anniversary of the moon landing. Then Neil Armstrong died that same year on Sean Connery's birthday. And what's even more interesting is that Sean Connery, he goes on to die this year, or 2020, on October 31st. And not only was October 31st, it was the day of a very special moon. It was the first blue moon that could be seen all over the world since the World Wars. I think it was World War II. So the first blue moon that could be seen all over the world. And then Sean Connery dies. And, whatever it was, 200 and some days later, or before, I talked about how we should watch out for Sean Connery, how he synced up to the moon. Then he ends up dying on the day of this blue moon that can be seen for the first time since the world wars, all over the world and so on. And even more interesting is that another Apollo 11 astronaut that was with Neil Armstrong, right? He didn't actually walk on the moon, but he was on Apollo 11 with Neil Armstrong, that where Neil Armstrong walked on the moon was Michael Collins. And Sean Connery just so happened to die on Michael Collins' birthday. So, what are the odds? Sean Connery dies on the birthday of one of the Apollo 11 astronauts, and then Neil Armstrong, another Apollo 11 astronaut, dies on Sean Connery's birthday. And, Michael Collins even went on to die this year on April 28th. So, even less than a year after Sean Connery, Michael Collins then dies. I mean, just been saying. It's all synced up to this moon theme. And it's interesting, too, the main story. The main story on CNN today was about China, too. China and the coronavirus. And, I've been talking about, since 2017, I've been talking about how China is really synced to this space narrative that is going on. And China even, a few years back, China even landed on the dark side of the moon. And that was on the very same day that Steph Curry wore moon shoes. And Steph Curry was really important to that space moon theme because his birthday is Pi Day. And the space theme that I started talking about was at the end of 2016, really. And I was talking about how Neil Armstrong was the first guy to walk on the moon, and Eugene Cernan was the very last person to step foot on the moon, and how I think there's a space moon theme because there was the closest supermoon since 1948 that fell on Prince Charles's birthday and a bunch of stuff. And Prince, the singer, had died on the night of a full moon and a whole lot more. And Pope Francis in 2015, when he left America, it was on the fourth blood moon of the Tetrad was later that night, and a whole lot more. There was a moon theme that was kind of building up, but in the November of 2016, I talked about it a lot, and I mentioned how it was important to Eugene Cernan, and then like a week later, John Glenn died, right? The astronaut John Glenn. And then on January 16th, Eugene Cernan just so happened to die. And in my video about Eugene Cernan, I talked about how he was synced up to Don Rickles, the guy who comedy or roasted him, right? And then Don Rickles goes on to die on the same day that they have John Glenn's funeral, which April 6th, I believe, that year. They held John Glenn's body for so long, and then they had his funeral in April, even though he died in December. And on that same day, Don Rickles goes on to die. And this year, on 2021, Don Rickles' wife just so happens to die on Pi Day, which is also Eugene Cernan's birthday. So there's something very important to pi and how it syncs up to this space narrative. And pi is very interesting, because pi also equals 69 in the Jewish cipher. And pi is also 11 here, but pi equals 69. Think about the moon landing in the year 69 during the sign of Cancer. And, the astrological symbol for Cancer looks like a 69. And the word Cancer equals 118. That's why Michael Collins died on the 118th day of the year, right? Think about the moon landing and so on. But just back then, I knew there was something important, and I talked about how NASA equaled 35 and how China equaled 35. And it's interesting, China also equals 69 of these Francis Bacon ciphers that I've been talking a whole lot about. Never even noticed that before, but there was more to it. But, just what are the odds? China's big in the news today. China also just recently landed for the first time on Mars, right? And then they had Perseverance that landed on Mars on 218. And in Hebrew gematria, moon equals 218. And it was the day I was following like crazy. And the moon landing happened on the 201st day of the year, and the word Mars equals 201 in the Jewish gematria. And Neil Alden Armstrong equals 201. It's this big Jesuit number that we've talked about a whole lot. Apollo in the Jewish ciphers equals 201 as well. Buzz Aldrin's birthday's 20/1, right? Buzz Aldrin, the other guy on Apollo 11, outside of Michael Collins. So Michael Collins, he died all synced up to James Bond, like 8 months and 3 days after. Let's type it out really quick. He died 8 months and 3 days after Sean Connery's birthday, and he died 83 days before the moon landing this year. The 52nd anniversary of the moon landing. Look at James Bond equals 83. And so on. But let's go back to this. Hopefully you get the gist of what I'm talking about here. I'm just pointing out there's a moon theme that is important to James Bond and how it syncs up to Batman and so on. And, what are the odds that Sean Connery would die on that special blue moon? And then this day we're following with the closest supermoon of the year, and it's also a blood flower moon and with an eclipse. And then we get this story about Amazon buying MGM, and they put emphasis on James Bond, of all things. And it's interesting because we also recently just got the story about the rivalry between Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and how it's extending to the moon and space and so on. And you remember earlier in the year, on January 7th, there was a story about how Elon Musk surpassed Jeff Bezos as the richest person in the world. And if you go back to that post, or that where I blogged about it, I talked all about the number 186 and how it was important to the moon. And let me just show you a few examples here. Apollo 11 equals 186 in these Francis Bacon ciphers. Neil Armstrong equals 186. Also, Eugene Cernan died 186 days before the anniversary of the moon landing. And, a whole lot more I'll explain, but look at Jeff Bezos in Gematria. Jeff Bezos, 186. Also 201. And if you look up Amazon, Amazon was founded on the date 7/5. If I can find it here. 7/5, which just so happens to be the 186th day of the year, July 5th. 186th day. If you go from this day to January 7th, when Elon Musk supposedly surpassed Jeff Bezos, it's 186 days after this day. So 186 days after the 186th day of the year, Elon Musk surpasses Jeff Bezos for money. And Jeff Bezos equals 186, right? Look at Elon Musk. Elon Reeve Musk. He just so happens to equal 186. And look at SpaceX. SpaceX also equals 186. This is also a big number that I've talked about over the years with Zachary K. Hubbard. In his new book, he even talks about how, his whole life people called him Zach Hubbard. And look at Zach Hubbard equals 186. And he had that synchronicity where the guy kept calling him about Event 201. And that guy's name, Dr. Paul Cottrell, equal 201. And then he was staying at the hotel called The Trim. That equals 186. And they gave him room 201 and so on, right? So it's no coincidence. And Louisiana equals 201 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. But leading up, when I was talking about the space theme at the end of 2016 going into 2017, that's when Zach started All for Truth. And then the Umbrella Man threatened him, and then his house got crashed into, or his garage got crashed into. And then 186 days after that, they took down his first ever channel. And they took his first ever channel down on the date 6/28, which just so happens to be the day leaving 186 days in the year, which just so happens to be Elon Musk's birthday. So Elon Musk's birthday is even the day that leaves 186 days in the year. And his name equals 186, and SpaceX equals 186. Then they take down Zach's channel 186 days after the Umbrella Man threatens him. Zach goes ahead and does one more episode of the Gematria Effect that year on the date 7/5, which is the 186th day of the year, and then he took a 2-week break. And this, I'm telling you, this is why after Sean Connery died, like 2 weeks later, Zach's newest channel, it got a strike. And it was over a video about Elon Musk, and it just so happened to be 218 days before Elon Musk's birthday. And notice Elon Musk equals 218. And 218 is, once again, important to the moon. Moon in Hebrew equals 218. We also had Perseverance that just landed on the moon on 218 when there was a Moon-Mars conjunction. And Mars equals 201 in the Jewish ciphers. Once again, the moon landing on the 201st day of the year. Neil Alden Armstrong, 201. It's this major number we've talked about with the Jesuits and so on. And I'm bringing this up because in this article about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk way back when, they made sure to let us know that Elon Musk had 191 billion and Jeff Bezos had 187 billion and Bill Gates 132. But Society of Jesus equals 187 and 191, which is the Jesuits, right? And then Catholic Church equals 132. Of course, Bill Gates' full name equals 201, William Henry Gates. He also was one of the hosts of Event 201 about a coronavirus pandemic outbreak. It came out just before coronavirus and so on. And think about Jeff Bezos. Think about Zach. Think about Bill Gates. Think about Seattle, where they said coronavirus first came in the United States. And, this is even more interesting because if you write out Jeffrey Preston Bezos, he equals 264. And Elon Reeve Musk also equals that. Elon Reeve Musk equals 264. And Seattle, Washington just so happens to equal 264. And this is also interesting because Seattle has the Space Needle. Space Needle, think about that in relation to coronavirus and space and the moon. And look, the word vaccine equals 264. This is why they told us the first lady to get the coronavirus vaccine in the UK was Margaret Keenan, who equals 264. And then they said that the first man was William Shakespeare. And they did that because William Shakespeare, according to a lot of people in conspiracy, in the conspiracy movement, whatever you want to call it, they believe that William Shakespeare is actually Francis Bacon. And these ciphers are named after Francis Bacon, right? Francis Bacon, Frank Baconus. This is also why Queen Elizabeth got her vaccine 264 days after her birthday. And her name also equals 264. And, if she dies, her son will become King Charles III, that equals 264. It's also interesting to point out Sean Connery equals 264. And Sean Connery just so happened to die a span of 264 days before Zachary K. Hubbard's birthday, which is the same day that Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the moon. So for all of these years, all of these things that they, striking his channel and so on, it's all synced up to the moon, right? It's very, very important to the moon landing. And they even synced up that story about, when he got bear sprayed. And believe it or not, he got bear sprayed Zach got bear sprayed like 186 days before or after his birthday. I can't remember which one. But, what are the odds? He gets bear sprayed in Portland. And of course, Portland equals 116, and it was on January 16th. It's before, because this is January 16th is the day that Eugene Cernan died, and he died in 2017 right after a car crashed into Zach's garage and so on, right? So, but I'm just pointing that out because they synced up Brian Sicknick like crazy, like with Zach to getting bear sprayed, right? Only person in the world I've ever heard of getting bear sprayed was Zach, and then they said Brian Sicknick at the Capitol building thing got bear sprayed, and that's what he died from in February or whatever. And can't remember how it synced up. It was something like Zach got bear sprayed 170 days after Brian Sicknick's birthday, and Brian Sicknick got bear sprayed 170 days after Zach's birthday, and Zach's full name equals 170, and Moon equals 170 in the Jewish cipher, right? So I know it's important, and what was it? Can't remember. There was something to do with Zach's girlfriend in Myanmar, and then like the very next day, the big story in the news was the coup in Myanmar, and the person who got overthrown was the lady who was born on the 170th day of the year, and it's a whole lot more, But I was losing my the reason that's important is because think about the Umbrella Man, right? And the All for Truth, the Truther website that Zach started, they got whatever, taken over, whatever. He used the umbrella logo in that. And I made a series of videos on this. You can watch it. There's just a lot to re-explain. But remember, George Floyd, they spray painted autonomous zone on the AutoZone store. And then in Seattle, right after George Floyd died, they started the autonomous zone at the Capitol Hill area of Seattle, right? And that was 212 days before the Capitol Hill takeover or whatever that Brian Sicknick died at. And Seattle, Washington equals 212. So there's something important in that the logo for that autonomous zone in Seattle, the Capitol Hill thing, it was the umbrella. And remember, a big day with that we were following in 2019 was like August 11th and Tisha B'Av and so on. And Tisha B'Av began on the 186th day of the Chinese pig year that year. And that's why South Park tweeted about China right after they had the Mexican Joker episode. Or Daryl Morey tweeted about China, and it was right after South Park had that episode called Mexican Joker, just before the Batman Joker movie came out. And then the next episode was called Banned in China. And the episode was about Cartman turning into a pig when he wanted to get his vaccine. And then, just a few months later, coronavirus is big in the news. Well, that was during a Chinese pig year. That's why South Park did that, right? It was all important. And Francis Bacon was important to that too. Bacon, pigs, and so on, right? But on August 11th that year, the biggest story was the riots in Hong Kong, right? And then the riots in Hong Kong are also known for using the umbrella logo or using an umbrella within their riots and so on. So I also talked about Greenland back in that time and how there was something important to Denmark. Or I talked about how there was something important to Denmark because of synchronicity and whatever. And literally the next day, Donald Trump, the major story was Donald Trump wanted to buy Greenland from Denmark, right? And Greenland's an autonomous zone, and Hong Kong is an autonomous zone. And then, they had the U.S. Capitol Hill autonomous zone. There's something important to that umbrella symbolism that's going on. And the umbrella symbolism actually stems back to the JFK assassination, the first Catholic president. And now we have Joe Biden, the second Catholic president, the 46th president. And remember, JFK is the 35th president. Joe Biden's the 46th president. The word Catholic equals 35 and also 46. But I'm bringing this up because the umbrella man was actually a guy named Louis Witt in the JFK assassination. His name equals 186. And his middle name's Stephen. And his name also equals 186 when you do it that way. And also 264. And something I also never pointed out was that Jeff Bezos got surpassed by Elon Musk earlier this year in money, a span of 264 days before the Jesuit anniversary, right? 264. I mean, it's just this humongous number that's going on. Kamala Harris also equals 264. And so does White House. White House equals 264. Another interesting 264 is Jim Lovell, or however you say his name, but he was an astronaut on Apollo 8. And he's also was the astronaut that was on Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks. Think about Tom Hanks, who got coronavirus and then tweeted about how he's losing by 201 points in gin rummy to his wife or whatever, and all kinds of stuff with Tom Hanks and coronavirus and 201 and whatever else. But his name equals 264. And we just recently had that story about SpaceX and they were landing. It was the first U.S. landing in the dark. I can't remember what it was. The first landing in the dark. It was on May 2nd, but 5-2, right? James Bond 52, but it was the first landing in the dark since Apollo 8. I don't know if I blogged about it somewhere. Maybe it was in here somewhere. I don't know, but it was the first. Let me find it. Here it is. But it was the first U.S. crew splashdown in the dark since Apollo 8. And Jim Lovell equals 264. And the other guy on Apollo 8, there's two other guys, but the one guy, his name equals 210. The word moon equals 210 and a whole lot more. Sean, I don't want to re-explain it, but it equals 210 in the English extended cipher that synchronicity was showing me to pay attention to. But another guy was Frank Borman, who was born on Pi Day, the same day as Eugene Cernan. So, there's something definitely synced up to how pi is related to this. And I'll have to go back and review some of my stuff because I know I talked a lot about pi and how it was synced up. Even when Don Rickles died, he died like 80 days after Eugene Cernan. And the symbol for pi and like the Roman, I'm trying to think here. The pi in the Roman letters equals 80. It has a value of 80, right? Or the Greek alphabet, my bad, but I can't remember it all. There was something really important to it. It was synced up to the number 95. I know pi equaled 95 in Satanic. And I think that was important just because if you write out NASA, the full name of it, it equals 666, right? And there was some other things how China synced up to the Houston Rockets with the Satanic cipher and something to do with the number 82 because Sean Connery's, Neil Armstrong died at age 82, I believe. Hold on. Neil Armstrong, he died age 82 on Sean Connery's 82nd birthday. And then Eugene Cernan, he also died at the age of 82. And he died, I think it was 82 days after Sean Connery's birthday. I'm going to look that up really quick. I can't remember why that was important to pi, but let's type 2116. Or maybe it was John Glenn. I can't remember anymore. But 144 is important to pi. So maybe that's what it was. Because if you sum the last 144 digits after the decimal of pi, they sum to 666. So I'm assuming that's probably what I was talking about. And John Glenn, let's see. Maybe it was John Glenn. Well, John Glenn died a span of 3 months and 14 days, like pi, after Neil Armstrong's anniversary of dying. And I'm pretty sure John Glenn died at the age of 95, and I'm pretty sure that pi equals 95 in the Satanic Gematria. But, well, I'm going to keep moving on. But it's interesting because Frank Borman is now the oldest living astronaut, and he's 11 days older than Jim Lovell, and pi also equals 11. So I don't know. There's a connection there. And then Steph Curry wearing the moon shoes the same day that China landed on the dark side of the moon. And Steph Curry's birthday is also Pi Day. And Klay Thompson's name equals 314. But let's just go back and look at this post. I want to see what all I wrote in here. This new post here. But there's so many things that I wish I had more time. I swear to you, like I'm too nice of a person, and one of these days I'm going to freak out on some people, but I got too much crap going on, and I don't ever have time to make videos unless I do it at like 3 in the morning, and I'm always exhausted, but but yeah, like I'm just mentioning this because Queen Elizabeth's dog just died, and it was all synced up to the same volcano symbolism I was talking about with her other dog dying, and then Prince Philip, the volcano that happened on the same day Prince Philip died, and Marilyn Manson's been in a lot lately too. I've just been blogging about him, and then right under this story on my notifications was one about Marilyn Manson being arrested, or having a warrant out in New Hampshire, and Marilyn Manson, he was born in 1969, the year of the moon landing, and he was born on 1/5 or 5/1, like the word moon equals 15 and 51. And a whole lot more with him. He started his Heaven Upside Down tour on the anniversary of the moon landing, and that was in 2017. He was also synced with the Stoneman Douglas, and Stoneman Douglas was important to the moon landing. the Eagle landing on the moon and the 49th anniversary of the moon landing. That's why they had the Falcon Heavy launch just before the Stoneman Douglas shooting. So it's just interesting. I've been randomly blogging about him. I've also been really trying to finish this book too. And I wanted it's been done for so long, but now I'm just adding more to it because it's so long already. Doesn't even matter. But I've literally been writing about the James Bond stuff, and then now this James Bond story is in the news. But let's just go through this really quick, and I'll end it. I think you get the point, but there's a lot of interesting things. You know, we just had a story too about how Jeff Bezos was there's a rivalry between Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk now, and it's all about going to the moon, right? And read this here. It says there was a flyer going around at Capitol Hill, which is interesting, but that Jeff Bezos would get a $10 billion sole source handout that would tie up NASA's moon plans and hand space leadership to China, of all people, you know, so. But once again, Jeff Bezos, 186, Amazon found on the 186th day of the year, Elon Musk, 186. You know, they both equal 264. It's 264 days before the Jesuit anniversary when Elon Musk surpassed Jeff Bezos. Sean Connery, 264. Neil Armstrong, Apollo 11, equal 186. Michael Collins just died 186 days before his birthday. Then a few days later on 5/1, Olympia Dukakis died. And of course, she died 51 days before her birthday on 5/1, and the word moon equals 51, and we're on the 51st anniversary of the moon landing, and she's famous for the movie Moonstruck. And the article went on to make sure to tell us that her brother named Apollo was the one who told the news of her death. Apollo and the moon landing, Moonstruck. I mean, but she's a cousin to Michael Dukakis, who ran against George Bush, I believe in 1988 for president, which is interesting because that was the same term when the space race came to an end in the year 91, right? It came to the end in December of 91. Space equals 91, rockets equal 91, Apollo equals 91. Oddly enough, today is also, or the day of this moon story, it's now the 27th, but the 26th is 91 days before Sean Connery's birthday and 9 months and 1 day after Sean Connery's birthday. I don't even think I wrote that in here, but, you know, Olympia Dukakis. Eugene Cernan died 186 days before Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, which is also Zach's birthday. Zach got bear sprayed, you know, that same day. Zach's also going to be 38 years old this year, and he was born in 83. And in Hebrew gematria, the moon equals 38 and also 83. Think about how Zach synced up to that umbrella symbolism. Umbrellas block the sun, like an eclipse, right? Think about Marilyn Manson, too, in regards to JFK, right? Marilyn Monroe. You know, Marilyn Manson had that Coma White video about the JFK assassination with Rose McGowan. That was important. Won't go into that, but, you know, when he had that same thing, he also had that song called Say 10, and that video where they had the assassinated president that was supposed to be Donald Trump. So it's just interesting with JFK. And it's also interesting, too, you know, 2017, the big year of the space theme I was talking about all year. That was Zach's got a car crash into his house, and then the guy James Jumper was mocking my blog, and my uncle died in a mysterious car crash that makes no sense. And my uncle was a Knight of Columbus, and I was being shown the number 1012, and Columbus supposedly discovered America on 1012, and I kept saying, I think there's something important to the Jesuits and the Catholic Church. And then later I had a bunch of synchronicity with the Catholic Church and how the priest who supposedly blessed me named Father Howard Fitzgerald for Father Howard, how he was important to this narrative, and he got busted for child molesting and kicked out of the church after 35 years by Pope Francis. And like a week later, we got the USS Fitzgerald crash or whatever, right? Howard Fitzgerald was the priest, and then we got the USS Fitzgerald, and it was named after a guy whose name equaled 187. And my neighbor, her name was Betty Fitzgerald, and my friend Clark lived in that house, and I looked him up, and his wife and him share a Facebook, and it said the birthday was the Jesuit anniversary, and his name equaled 312, which was the big Jesuit number I was talking about at the time that year. But I'm just thinking about all these Jesuit things that were leading up to what I was talking about, and I was following the Jesuit anniversary, saying I think there's going to be a big event on the Jesuit anniversary, and then on the Jesuit anniversary, that guy who got the perfect showcase on The Price is Right reached out to me just before the Las Vegas attack, and that guy was from Las Vegas. And on the Jesuit anniversary that year, I got a phone call from the Las Vegas area, and then, Las Vegas gets attacked like 4 days later. But the guy who got the perfect showcase, his name's 186. And my uncle, when he died, it was all about the Flintstones, and the Flintstones equals 186. So there's something really important to that. Donald Trump's birthday is also 186 days before Pope Francis's birthday. So it's a definite number that's synced up to the Jesuits. 187 we always associate with Society of Jesus, but 186, there's something that's super important to, how it syncs up and whatever. And, the Flintstones too were important because remember Ralphie May died on 10/6. He died right after the Vegas attack, and he died in Las Vegas, and he was from Chattanooga, where my grandma was from, and my grandma had just died. And when I was reading her obituary, it said she was actually from Flintstone, Georgia, and she died in the same year as my uncle died. And there's a whole lot more that goes along with it. But actually, I think my grandma's name equaled 186. Hold on, it was Ruth. No, it was 194, the Charles Manson number. But she all equals 211, like Chattanooga, Tennessee, where Ralphie May was from. And I had also talked about how I thought Ralphie May would die that year, and then Ralphie May did die, and he died in Las Vegas. And the Flintstones also had that part 2, where there takes place in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas equals 86. And once again, 86, 2022, the year of the Tiger. Tiger King was all about the number 22. That's why I think the year 2022 is important, because it's the Chinese Tiger year, and the 186th day of the Chinese Tiger year is also when Tisha B'Av begins. And remember, last year, in 2020, there was the International Tiger Day, just so happened to be the same day as that Tisha B'Av began or whatever. And then the day before that was the day that NASA, I think, was established, right? Something along the lines of that. They were like really close to each other. Or maybe it was all on the same day. So it was important to space and whatnot. 86 is also this really important number, because if you go back to the, I know I'm just kind of rambling right now because I'm trying to piece this together, but in 2019, a big thing was that I had this synchronicity with Mary Poppins and an umbrella, and then there was a story about an umbrella floating away in Turkey, a guy floating away on an umbrella in Turkey, and then Zach's channel got hacked with porn, and it was synced up to the Umbrella Man. And my channel also Zach got a strike for that, and it lasted until 6/28, the day leaving 186 days of the year. But my channel also got a strike earlier in that year, and it was over this music video I had that involved the Breakfast Club, and Molly Ringwald is the star of that movie, and Emilio Estevez, and their names equal 186. And I had this crazy synchronicity with the Mighty Ducks, and Pink, and Pretty in Pink, and John Hughes, the creator of the Breakfast Club, and Pretty in Pink that has Molly Ringwald, and so on the day August 6th, right, which is the day that World Trade Construction began, which is also the day of the atomic bombs. So it's a very important day, August 6th, right, 8-6. Think about 86 somebody, right, in Las Vegas that I was talking about earlier equals 86 too. There's just something stupidly important to it. It's synced up to, to the year, the Chinese years. James Bond equals 164. Daniel Craig 164. Sean Connery 164. Eugene Cernan 164. I mean, just look at these connections, right? Pierce Brosnan, a James Bond guy, 264. Roger George Moore, 264, and also 186. He's the only James Bond in film to go to the moon, right? He was in the film Moonraker, and he died in 2017, which is when I started noticing this pattern of how James Bond was connected to the moon, right? So it's like that's when I noticed that the Great Moon Hoax was on Sean Connery's birthday, and that Neil Armstrong had died on Sean Connery's birthday just after the Batman shooting that was on the anniversary of the moon landing, was in 2017. So it's like, what are the odds that his name equals 264, like Sean Connery, like Pierce Brosnan, also 186. Today's also 56 days before Zach's birthday, and Society of Jesus is 56. SpaceX was founded on 5/6. Jeff Bezos is 56 years old right now. This 264 number is also important to the Jesuits because the founder of the Jesuits, Saint Ignatius of Loyola, equals 264, and there was also that Cyber Polygon event that was 264 days after Event 201 that was held by the World Economic Forum that equals 264. And the World Economic Forum, I believe, was also one of the other people who hosted Event 201, along with Bill Gates, right? And the founder of that, Klaus Martin Schwab, equals 264. COVID-19 also equals 264. Forgot all about that. What's just COVID? Or maybe it was this. Oh, it equals, that's why I was thinking of it. Because COVID with all capital letters equals 212. And COVID-19, the way CNN often writes it, but COVID-19 also equals 212, just like Seattle, Washington equals 212, and how, they said that Seattle was the first place where coronavirus began and all that. Jeff Bezos' company, his space company, is called Blue Origin, that equals 164, just like James Bond. Also 314, reminding us of pi. Today's 3 months and a span of 3 months and 14 days before the anniversary of Blue Origin. So, I don't know. There's something just definitely synced up to this. Remember, we also had Diana Rigg die. Diana Rigg, the Bond girl, she died 52 days before Sean Connery died. And she died 52 days after the moon landing anniversary. And that's also her birthday, was the moon landing anniversary. And Diana is the goddess of the moon. And her name equals 52. And James Bond equals 52. And I'm pretty sure Sean Connery also equals 52. Right? We're coming up on the 52nd anniversary of the moon landing. And then the new James Bond film is also coming out 2 months and 18 days after the anniversary of the moon landing. Remember, 218 is important to the moon as well. 10-8, it's also coming out on 10-8, and 108, and the moon's supposedly 108 diameters of the moon away from the Earth, and a whole lot more. So I'm paying attention to the Seattle area because there's all this volcano symbolism that's going on, and think about Mount St. Helens, and we just had the death of Helen McCrory, who was in the Harry Potter movies, but she died at age 52. But she was also in the movie Skyfall. And the whole reason I was following Harry Potter before she died, even, was that my daughter Claire was telling me how she really loved Harry Potter and so on. And it's interesting because she plays Claire Dewar MP in the movie Skyfall. And Skyfall was the James Bond movie that was in the previews of the Batman shooting, right? So she dies age 52, and James Bond equals 52, and Aurora, Colorado equals 221, and Batman equals 221, and 221 is this big number I've been following with volcanoes. Just think about her name, Helen, Mount St. Helens. I don't know, it just seems like there's something important to the Seattle area. Or, Washington, or... Of course, too, I was following the date 516 like crazy, and then Alex Bowman ends up winning the race that day, and Alex Bowman is the guy who turned 28 years old on the same day as the Talladega race. And let's see if I can find this post here. I know I blogged about it. Where in the world did it go? But maybe it's in here. I don't know where I blogged about it, but Alex Bowman is because Dale Earnhardt Jr. died at 5:16 p.m. and then on the race on 5:16, Alex Bowman, the guy from Talladega, or the guy who was born the same day as Talladega, he won the race, and then they had an article about how he quoted Talladega Nights, and for some reason I cannot find that. All right, I found it. It's in this Marilyn Manson post, but trying to think here. Alex Bowman, right? He wins and then he quotes Talladega Nights. "Help me, Tom Cruise, I'm on fire," he said, quoting a popular line from Talladega Nights. And believe it or not, after I was reading this article, like the girl that I worked with, she all of a sudden out of nowhere said, "Have you guys ever seen the movie Talladega Nights?" And I can't remember why she said it. I wrote it in here. I have so much synchronicity I can't even remember all of it, but oh, it was another girl I worked with saw a packet of Big Red sitting up on the counter, and it had been there forever. And she asked why it was there, and then the other girls said some quote from Talladega Nights about Big Red, and then she asked if we'd ever seen the movie or whatever. It's like, I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. But I had just talked about Tom Cruise too, in regards to all this symbolism that's going on, because Tom Cruise is in the movie Days of Thunder, that also has John C. Reilly in it, I believe. Right? Days of Thunder, like a NASCAR type movie, and Talladega Nights has John C. Reilly, and John C. Reilly is also in the Days of Thunder, and John C. Reilly equals 516 in gematria, right? And 516 is whatever, so. His car also started on fire, reminding us of Vulcan, right? The god of fire and volcanoes. And at the Talladega race, the winner gets a Vulcan trophy. He also took over the number 88 for Dale Earnhardt. There's just so much. I should just make a whole nother video on it, but I'm just kind of looking through some of these because I don't get a chance to do this very often anymore. I also looked up, I was thinking Carl's Jr. and Hardee's were the same place. I mean, we were having a conversation about this at work or something, because I don't even think I've ever even been to Carl's Jr. before, but I was talking about how when I was a kid, Hardee's was the place to go. And ever since the Hardee's in Denison, Iowa hasn't been there, Yeah, I've like barely ever seen a Hardee's again. And I noticed that Hardee's equals 129. And another reason is because right after we talked about this, literally the next song on that was playing at work was a song called Boots by the artist Hardy. And I was like, what are the odds Hardy is now on after we're talking about Hardee's? And I looked up Hardee's in Gematria and it equals this volcano number I was following. So I just looked up the guy who used to drive the Hardee's car, and it was this guy. So he's age 82 even, like volcano equals 82. And he drove the number 28 car, and volcano equals 28. So I was thinking about Carl Edwards and Carl's Jr. And I looked at my phone, it was 516 or something. On 516, just like, what are the odds? They quote Talladega Nights. It's funny too. I was driving home from band practice that night or the night before, or whatever it was, the night that I wrote this blog post, and the first thing on my YouTube feed was this video about Marilyn Manson. And I was just like, oh, I'll listen to it, whatever, I might as well listen to it. I have an hour to kill, and within like 10 minutes into it, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this interview, it was just posted recently, but it was actually happened in 2017, around the time of his Heaven Upside Down album that came out in the 10th month, and it was like his 10th album, and he had the song called Say 10, and, God is 10, and Satan is 10, and so on. But in this podcast, Marilyn Manson literally goes on to talk about how he had just watched the movie Apocalypse Now, and how his dad said it's the most realistic thing compared to his experience in Vietnam or whatever. And I was just like, what are the odds of this? Because we have talked about this forever, how Marilyn Manson is synced up to this narrative with the Rose theme, right? And uh, Axl Rose wearing the Charlie Don't Surf shirt, and how Charlie Rose was born on the same day as Marilyn Manson, and Robert Duvall, the actor who says Charlie Don't Surf in the movie Apocalypse Now, his birthday's also January 5th, and Robert Duvall's also in the movie Days of Thunder, so I think he might be important to pay attention to. But what are the odds that Marilyn Manson would just mention this in this video that just was on the top of my YouTube suggestions or feed or whatever you want to call it, right? And I just randomly click on it, and he talks about Apocalypse Now of all things within the first 10 minutes, and he also goes on to tell how his dad was training to be a Jesuit priest, right? Like, what are the odds of that? I don't know if his dad is a Jesuit priest, but in this video, he literally says that his dad was training to be a Jesuit priest. And then he went to a Christian school, not a Catholic school or whatever. So it's like, you just got to be kidding me, I randomly listened to this 1,314 days after the podcast was put out. And it was put out on it was put out on 10/12, which is the day Christopher Columbus supposedly discovered America, right? So 10/12, and the name of the podcast equals 1314, just like how many days away I watched it. Or how many days away that they put it on YouTube is what it was. I didn't watch it on that day. Yeah, my computer wouldn't work for like a day too. It kept saying this on my blog, and I couldn't go on my blog. It kept saying deceptive site ahead. And that was the same day that I was trying to blog about China's landing the rover on Mars, and it wouldn't let me do it. And I have no idea. I didn't do anything different. It lasted for hours, and the only way I could do it was to not use Google Chrome. but I can't remember my password, and it was just like a pain in the ass. But I don't know. When I went back to it, it started working again. So, but I mean, it was hours. It kept saying this over and over. Deceptive site ahead. I pointed out a bunch of stuff about James Bond in here. It's named after Zhu Rong, the Chinese god of fire. We also had Michael Jordan's final text message from Kobe that he wouldn't delete, right? And there's just a bunch of interesting things going on with these things because the final text just happened to be December 8th, 2019, which just so happened to be Dwight Howard's 34th birthday. And go back and watch my Kobe Bryant videos. I talked about how Dwight Howard being on the Lakers was all synced up. The whole season was going to be scripted to Kobe Bryant and his Achilles injury, and it was. And it was all due with the number 34, and Dwight Howard turned 34 years old. And this is also the same day that Kobe made his return after his Achilles injury, and it's all synced up to Chris Paul and Dwight Howard, and so it's just funny that it goes back to that day. 12/8. Dwight Howard's 34th birthday. Span of 49 days, right? And Chicago Bulls is 49. Space Jam's 49. 12/8 leaves 23 days in the year, like Michael Jordan's number. Jordan absolutely loved the text about blowing out a team 45-8, like Jordan and Michael and Kobe's alternate numbers. Kobe's inducted in the Hall of Fame on the 135th day of the year, and his name equals 135. Believe it or not, when I was reading about this article, I looked up, and the car in front of me had license plates that said Kobe 24. Like, what are the odds of that? But the whole Kwame Brown thing too, or Kwame, however you say his name. I was always a Laker fan, and I remember Kwame playing for the Lakers a whole lot, and Kobe always hating on him and telling him he sucked and needed to step it up and whatever. And, there's a whole lot going on with that. But Kwame Brown's birthday is March 10th, 310. And that's interesting because that's the day that Michael Jordan retired from baseball in 1995. And it's also the day that Zach LaVine, the Chicago Bulls star, was born. He was born on 3/10/1995. And remember, 2015, he wore that Space Jam jersey, the Michael Jordan Space Jam jersey, and he won the slam dunk contest on Valentine's Day, the same day that Denzel Valentine hit a game winner for Michigan State. And now Denzel Valentine wears number 45 for the Chicago Bulls, he plays with Zach LaVine, right? Who wears number 8, I'm pretty sure, 45 and 8. And, I don't know, I'm just pointing this out because I think the Bulls are going to have a good season next year. I think they're being pretty good next year, and they're a team to pay attention to, at least for symbolism. But, it's way more synced up than that because Zach LaVine was a teen wolf at the time, and he was a teen wolf, and he won the slam dunk contest, and Andrew Wiggins was a teen wolf, and he won the Rising Star Challenge MVP the night before. And then Russell Westbrook was the MVP of the All-Star game, and Zach LaVine went to UCLA for college, and Russell Westbrook went to UCLA for college, and Andrew Wiggins became a teen wolf because he was traded for Kevin Love, who went to UCLA. And on Valentine's Day, Kevon Looney was the one who was the leading scorer for UCLA. Think about Space Jams and Looney Tune, and then Denzel Valentine hits the game winner on Valentine's Day. And number 45, right? Valentine's Day is the 45th day of the year. Michael Jordan also wore the number 12 one time, and that's because his jersey supposedly got stolen on Valentine's Day in 1990. But of course, Bulls equals 12 and a whole lot more. But I just think there's a big narrative because next year is going to be the 23rd anniversary of Michael Jordan retiring from the Chicago Bulls, right? Think about number 23 and so on. So There's something, super synced up to it. The Teen Wolf was really important to Scottie Pippen's son dying too. His son died. What they said his son died, or they talked about it on the first day of Taurus, which is a bull, and this is also the Chinese year of the ox, right? And the ox is a castrated bull, so it's all to do with bull symbolism. Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls, the bull god. That's also why we got that story about Kobe Bryant's shoes and Nike that same day too. Let me pull it up really quick. But Simone Biles drops Nike. So a connection to Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant estate won't renew partnership with Nike the same day it was reported that Scottie Pippen's son died. And in the Nike slayed the bull, right? That's why they did this. So that they have Michael Jordan, doing the Kobe Bryant speech at the Hall of Fame thing, and Michael Jordan can't seem to delete his tweets from Kobe Bryant. And Scottie Pippen's son dies age 33, and Pippen wore the number 33. They reported on the first day of Taurus in the year of the ox, which all has to do with bull symbolism. And then that same day, Kobe Bryant's estate won't renew its partnership with Nike, and Nike is who slayed the bull. I mean, unbelievable, And I swear to you, just before this, I was talking about how there was something important to Zion Williamson's shoe and whatever his shoe blowing out, and he did that in the game against North Carolina, and which is Michael Jordan's old team. And there's just this big narrative that I kept following with it all, and then Zion Williamson the very next day, I had no idea, but he unveiled his new shoe. It's like, you just got to be kidding me. And he's also signed with Jordan Brand, right? I'll have to go back and look. I can't even remember it all, but in that movie Like Mike, that was important to that whole narrative, because in the movie Like Mike, his shoe blows out just like Zion Williamson, how his shoe blew out, and talk about all this leading up to it. But the bully in that movie, his name's Ox, right? Now we're in the year of the ox, and then Zion Williamson unveils a new shoe. Then Scottie Pippen's son dies the same day as his estate doesn't re-sign with Nike, who slayed the bull on the first day of Taurus. I mean, whatever. I'm done rambling. I don't want to get struck by lightning out in my garage, but one of these days I'm going to finish this book I've been working on for like 2.5 years. It's really funny because the person I was waiting on was my cousin. I've been done since October, but now I'm just adding a whole lot more. But I was waiting on my cousin, but her not doing it is like perfect, like helping me edit it. It's perfect because her name syncs up exactly to everything. It's perfectly happened. I wasn't supposed to finish it until now. It's kind of nice because some of the things I'm adding, they really add on to some of the adds a whole nother layer to what I'm explaining throughout a whole lot of other things in there. So, I like the Batman theme. I just, in the last 6 months, there's been so much more that is important to that theme, So it's kind of cool to be able to put it in there. So I guess in a way, I think it was all meant to be, but I really, really, really want to have it done before the month is over. So I don't have to work on Friday, and if I can get lucky and have the day to myself, I can finish it. I guarantee it, but I doubt that will happen. And one of these days, I'm going to blow up and tell my lazy-ass girlfriend's family to fuck off and quit giving them rides and doing everything for them and let them grow up a bit. And then maybe I can start making videos again, but not to make a sob story, but man, whatever. Have a good one. Peace.